everybody. Welcome to another letter and story from the F.T.I.O's bio story. Me, one and only Portia Tierra, founder and CEO of Prison from the Inside Out Inc. Today we have Allison Roberts, the loved one of our incarcerated friend Major Duval Anderson, and we also have our new co-host, Purpose. You want to introduce yourself to the folks, Purpose?
What's going on, Purpose?
So
Stay tuned.
today we're gonna be covering the story, as I just said, of Major Duval Anderson, and we're just gonna have everyone chime in, give opinion as we go along. So we're just gonna jump right into his letter and go from there. Major Duval writes, on September 1st, 1979, at a funeral in Clark County, Alabama, Major Duval Anderson decided it would be perfect timing to come into the world, or at least he thought it was. The funeral was being held for Major Williams, the granddad he'd never get to meet, not once, and yet a good man whom he would be proud to follow and walk in his shoes. This story starts off as Baby Major extends to Pastor Major. So Major Duval Anderson is now currently a pastor?
No, but that's his dream. That's what he aspires to.
All right. Definitely a good guy. He's definitely a God-fearing man. If you know anything about the history of our names, you will understand that a name in old times represented a person's character or what the parents expected out of a person. So many of us are unintentionally trying to live up to names we've been given and have mistakenly overlooked our true identity. Through this journey, I've learned that one name really fits me and so many others, a child of God. Amen to that. I know I'm a child of God.
Okay.
Since I was a young boy, I always knew that there was something special about me. I was favored in so many ways, yet cursed in just as many. I often reflect back on my early childhood and say to myself, if only I know. I think as adults, we all do that, right? As we get older, we look back on our childhood and say, the things I know now, I would have never done this.
If only.
Mm-hmm. I grew up with a great family. We all lived in the same house, well, early into childhood. We traveled together, we ate together, and we partied together. Life seemed what it should be, and yet not for me. All my childhood, I felt as if I deserved more, that I should be doing better. My imagination was brilliant, yet my circumstances just did not match. As a matter of fact, it was like everyone else's circumstances came from my imagination dwelling on the ideas created an anger in me that I never really wanted. Yet this anger, along with the favor I already possessed, made me into a hero slash villain. Life really got interesting and out of control faster than I wanted. Yet I had a sense of identity as my teenage years cruised by. My identity still didn't fit my imagination, nor did it quench this urge I'd had since a young boy.
I think what he's saying there is that he'd always aspired to do something special, but his circumstances, kept setting him back. So every time he tried to move forward, he got knocked back, which is,
Absolutely.
a story over and over again.
Absolutely. I definitely agree. Like that, a lot of times, as we are growing, when you have purpose on your life, God sends, large imaginations, a thing that he mentioned multiple times, just having a large imagination, dreams and goals. And because of his circumstances, he was not able to achieve those at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Up and down, and on the downside longer, and on the downside longer than on the upside. It began to make my life undesirable. And when anything becomes undesirable, we humans tend to think we need to add our own special ingredients. So he's saying he took control of his circumstances.
Right. No doubt.
Yeah.
hmm So, like the norm, alcohol, weed, and any other painkiller, I served it on me. Cool guy life. Hello, hell on earth. Waking up to the worst of the worst, I finally cooked this greater being. What did I need to do looking back? I can still find no immediate relief from the hill that I created. And yet, I look at my life now and I see a total change. I still have that great imagination that still makes me feel as though my circumstances are not what they are supposed to be. Yet, as I reflect back at my youth, I understand that the decisions I once made out of my youthful ignorance are not to be even considered again. He
I
has
think
grown.
when we were talking about this letter, when he was writing it, I think what he was trying to say there is, although his background was difficult and he was certainly no angel, he always, it's more out of youthful ignorance than malice. It was just that's that was the circumstances that he found himself in, and yet he still had his dreams.
Which is amazing. Something that I think a lot of us, as we grow older, uh, you out of frame. Purpose.
Yeah,
You out of
Oh, I'm
frame.
out of frame.
Yeah. As we grow older, that we lose that. So
yeah.
the fact that he was able to grow and mature and still have the the dreams, the goals that he had as a youth, something amazing. It also shows that there was some kind of purpose placed on his life because it followed him. It didn't disappear as he aged.
Well, I mean, he, after that, once the realization, and it goes on to explain that in the letter, but just as a foreword, he goes on, he actually does make changes with the help of his son's mother. They managed to get him, it goes on to say, to get him out of that life and start a career. And he was really, really proud of being able to turn his life around. But as I say, that he goes on to say about that.
So let's continue so we can figure out exactly what Allison is explaining to us. What she said is that um, although Major found himself in the cycle that most teenagers find themselves in, nothing abnormal. He smoked some weed, he drank some alcohol, he had a little bit of fun. It's not terribly abnormal. He wasn't um, doing anything horrific. Uh, he later had a child and he was able to get on track and get a job and do the things that a normal growing young man would do to provide for his family. So let's read what he actually wrote that led up to his growth and maturity.
And I had so many questions. It's crazy, but I'm sure the letter is going to fill me in on some of it. So I'm just staying
Ask.
tuned.
Look, ask.
I mean, in regards to like how old was he when he got, when he caught the case and was incarcerated, about what time or phase in his life did his change come, or did he get some type of epiphany? You know what I'm saying? Like what influenced, his redirection, So I want to wait till the letter go
Okay.
for
Yes,
because
because that's coming. All of that. Yes, that
right,
was
you,
good
you get what I'm saying?
questions. Absolutely. But that was good. Throw it out there. Make the audience wonder too. That was good. Good questions. So Major continues to say, at the age of 21, I decided with the help of my son's mother that I should become a truck driver. To my surprise, they accepted me into AMJ Career Carriers, and I was off to Millington, Tennessee to pursue my career, which I loved. I'm sad to say I was still associated with the best friend from elementary school, my confidant. So I planned to send for him when he turned 21. But before that could happen, I got a shocking phone call. My best friend had done a terrible thing, and like a good friend, I gave my best friend some advice. Several days later, I received a call from my mom saying that she heard I had killed someone. I knew this wasn't a joke when a day later my cousin called saying the same thing. I wasn't really thinking about the call my best friend and I had several days before. I knew there was no way this could be true. I was the man that had made it out of the hood. A few hours later, policemen all wearing jackets were yelling and pointing guns at me. The worst day of my life had just begun. Processed in 201 Memphis County Jail with nothing, my life felt useless. It took a further 18 days for me to be transferred to Birmingham, Alabama, a 5-hour drive. If I can only get there, everything will be okay, I thought. 18 days later, Steve Young tells me that he knows I didn't do it, but he wanted me to tell him why my friend had done it. I replied that I wasn't there. I didn't think it was my job to find out what happened, which is a fact. It's not his job.
Which absolutely isn't his job, and particularly as he knew the relationship between Major and his best friend. Why
I,
would
I
you?
mean, in any circumstance, because that kind of angers me. And in these interviews, like I said, they raw, and so I say what I feel, and you guys feel free to say what you feel also. I know so many people that have been placed in this exact circumstance. It is not the job of the witness or of, you know what I'm saying? If I did not participate, because in some states there are crimes like felony murder or, things like that. If I did not participate, if someone called me and told me, whatever the case, as long as I didn't hide anybody or I didn't, you know what I mean? To where you're trying to say that I'm an accessory,
Yeah.
it's not my job.
You chose
Even if I did do it, it's not my job. That is your job as a police officer to go and investigate and find the evidence you need to convict me or whoever else.
what I think is if you're not involved, why on earth would you involve yourself? Why would you? Why would you? With what we know goes on, why would you distance yourself from it as quickly as possible if you had nothing to do with it?
The problem I think is not that, because a lot of us don't even know, how to behave when we are placed in those rooms with police officers.
Exactly.
We don't know to just not even talk to them and ask for a lawyer immediately. Like there is no, you can ask me hi, how you're doing, and that's about it in that
Yeah.
circumstance. And even that I might not want to answer because there's trickery behind them. But the problem, I believe, the major problem is that when you use your rights against police officers, they hold it against you. You have the right to not talk to them. And they say, okay, well, you're not talking. That must mean you're guilty. That must mean you have something to hide. That's not
Sure.
that's not a fact. That means I'm exercising my rights to not talk to a person that is trying to solve a murder. You know what I mean? And looking for anybody to pit it on. And it's
The thing with
unfortunate because it seems like he fell victim to that.
the thing with this case is that the detective Steve Young knew who'd done it, and he knew Major knew who'd done it, and he wanted Major to be like a witness against his best friend, and Major absolutely wasn't going to do it. Wasn't going to do it. That was the situation he found himself in. They knew he wasn't guilty. They wanted him to be a witness.
Is the friend in jail also?
No, no, the friend was, I think, became a witness against Major.
What? So he didn't tell on the
The friend,
friend, and the friend came and
That's
testified on him?
that's my understanding. Let's read on a bit because that's my understanding that the friend actually turned against Major.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
So I
Okay.
think what the police were doing, this is completely my take on it. This isn't Major hasn't told me this, but it's my understanding that they had people in different rooms, and it was a case of who talks first. Well, let's get a story, let's get a conviction. We don't care which one of you it is. Who's gonna, if you talk, you can go. They were threatened, the witnesses were threatened. If they didn't talk up, they'd be implicated. And Major was told the same thing, talk up or you'll be implicated, and Major stayed quiet, the others talked.
So he stayed silent, and the friend pretty much folded, and which is horrible because he folded on his friend that had nothing to do with it, and he is still running around somewhere out free.
That's my understanding. I don't think Major knows anything about, he disappeared. But two of the witnesses that were coerced and threatened by the police have now come forward and signed affidavits saying that they were coerced by this detective and what they were told to say in court to incriminate Major, who actually wasn't there. There was no DNA and he was out of state.
So why do they not realize, why was it hard for him to prove that he was out of state if he was working?
That's what I don't understand, because to me that would be very easy.
That's easy.
If you're not, and I know nowadays they have cameras everywhere, you walk in and buy a chocolate bar and you're on film. Whether it was the same then, I don't know, but I don't understand why his defence did not, which would have been, to me, the absolute obvious thing, but it was, I believe, court-appointed defence, who, well, clearly, let's say it, they didn't do their job.
Right.
Because to me, I could have done better. I could have done that.
Right.
I actually could have done that quite easily. And I live in France, and I could have proved he wasn't there.
Wow.
It's crazy.
It's big. And you know what's crazy? I'm familiar with so many situations like that. And the irony in that is that that individual that is being charged, though evidence and circumstances show otherwise, they hold a belief like, this can't be happening. It's going to unfold. I'm going to get out of it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The truth is going to, is going to come out sometime soon. But then they end up languishing in there for,
years and
how
years
long.
And years.
It's like, whoa, the case becomes stale. And by the time you start trying to speak out about it, people are like, do I want to waste my time even going that far, digging that deep up into, court files and, transcripts and all that, So it's very unfortunate, but I've been familiar with lots of cases like
that. Yeah. Are you familiar with Mississippi law, Allison?
Am I familiar with? Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Are you familiar with Mississippi's laws?
No, do you mean Alabama?
Did he get arrested in Alabama?
Well, he was taken to the Memphis jail. I think he was arrested where he was doing
his work at, but then he was extradited to Birmingham, Alabama. You're right. Why is he?
Right, so Tennessee.
Why is he in Mississippi now?
Why? Sorry, I missed that.
Why is he in Mississippi now?
He's not. He's in Alabama.
Am I tripping? Because I swear that he was in a Mississippi prison.
No, he's in Alabama. Mississippi's never been mentioned. He was arrested in Tennessee.
No, I meant
Mississippi is the other guy.
No. I thought that the initial letters that I got from him were addressed from Mississippi. Do they use a mail company where he's at?
I use J-Mail.
Oh, like JPay?
And he's in Alabama.
Well, that's my mistake. I definitely thought he was in Mississippi.
He was arrested in Tennessee where he was doing his driving course, his truck. So, as I say, he was out of state. He was arrested there. And then after 18 days, he was taken to Birmingham, Alabama. where he was tried.
So yes, let's make that very clear. That was my mistake. He is in Alabama, and I usually announce that at the beginning of the videos because we do cover stories nationwide. So Major Duval Anderson is actually our first Alabama story then. Okay. So let's see where we left off in this letter. Oh, I know where we were. He's beginning the process of getting questioned by the police, just to recap. So he went through his teenage years. If you guys are just tuning in, good kid, a little bit confused about where he wanted to be in life, smoked a little weed, drank a little drink, nothing horrible. Ended up having a baby at a young age, began getting his life together at the age of 21, became a trucker, out on the road, gets a phone call from a friend. Doesn't really go into much detail about what happened on that phone call. But a couple days later, his family begins calling him, stating that it's being said that he has committed a murder. And now he's surrounded by police and being extradited from Tennessee to Alabama. The police are now talking to him, and he's telling them that he doesn't know anything about this murder and that it's not his job, per se, to assist them on a case that he knows nothing about because he was out of state working. And we're going to jump into the letter so you get it from him. How I wish I had known better, the statement I made to him. He responded with, "You will be sitting here a while then. It has now been 18 years and counting. Life without parole for a murder that I did not commit." So he was eventually sentenced to life without the possibility of parole for this crime that he states that he's innocent of, because he did not assist the Alabama investigators in the conviction of the person who is actually guilty. I'm haunted by that day. Today, 5 rule, 32 petitions outstanding, and a clear prison record. Yet the state of Alabama still thinks I deserve to die in prison. I've dedicated my life to serving God, Jesus Christ, and others. It is my dearest wish to help as many men and women and youth to get them away from the street life. I will not give up. I will not stop asking for my freedom, and I will not stop being what I know I can be, a success. Signed, Major Anderson.
I wish I could have a conversation with him because my thing is I want to know what his perspective is pretty much on as what the system would see as him hiding his friend or protecting his friend. You know what I mean? I mean, from the viewpoint of an adult male now. You know what I mean? A fully grown, mature man. You know, of course, back then he was a little younger. You know, that camaraderie thing goes, and you know, sometimes people have that blind loyalty.
Right.
I'm riding with you, I'm with you to the end, whatever, and all that. Yeah, I mean, so much I want to even taking away, aside from the fact that dude came back and went against him, even had that not happened.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? The feeling of protecting somebody, not even who didn't prove to be, you know, not worthy. You know what I'm saying? Who didn't prove to be, you know, stood out to, you know, he didn't even, you know, stand the test, basically.
Right.
But even without that, like, how do you feel? Because a lot of people are going to question that. They're going to wonder, okay, protecting somebody that killed somebody. I mean, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Even if you didn't do the time, you get what I'm saying? It's like, where's your remorse in regards to a life was taken? You know what I mean? And the way society will look at it is, okay, you might know some about it because the way the officers had reacted, you know what I'm saying, is we know you know something. And oftentimes it's unfortunate that law enforcement do use those tactics in regards to trying to so-called like break somebody down. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Or break down the code, of the streets, so to speak.
Right.
You know what I mean? Especially when it's situations where you might have, individuals who are gang members and they,
Right.
grew up together and, they know there's a camaraderie and some type of, I guess, some type of solid bonding, between individuals who've been through, a lot of things together, as far as um, uh, 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 involving a lot of criminality.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Um, so unfortunately, they do that. I've seen many cases like that. You know what I mean? Well, they know the individual didn't do it, but we know your homeboy did it.
Right.
You want to stay down, you want to stay solid. It's important for us not to have you solid. You get what I'm
Exactly.
saying?
Yes.
You won't have this type of, recognition, amongst your homeboys or whatever. So, we're gonna make you suffer because, you know. So I mean, I don't know. My thing is deeply, how does he feel, as a person? I get, you saying you follow, God, or you touch your spiritualism and all this type of, which is very common. You know what I'm saying? In prison, not trying to take away from any of that. Any of his practices, beliefs, rituals, or whatever he got going on. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's like, okay, here it is. A life has been taken. You get what I'm saying? We get you
His
suffering,
life has been taken
unfortunately.
also.
Right. We get that. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, that's why I want to hear so much more from him. It's like, how do you feel about it? Not just the betrayal aspect. So we get that part. You know what I'm saying? Nobody want to be told on by their friend. Nobody want to be betrayed by their friend or their partner in any kind of way. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, how do you feel overall? If you had the information, would you have persisted? Yeah, I mean, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, like I
Uh,
think what you're trying to say is like more so like with the 18 years that I believe he said in the letter that has passed, looking back on the initial circumstances, knowing that this friend of yours, whether he has stayed solid or not, had committed this murder, do you now look back on it like, in a sense, I did play a part in that because I did not tell on this man at that time?
that's what the law is going to hold him to. You get what I'm saying? The criminal justice
But
system.
that still is not a life without a possibility of parole sentence. Even if they were to hold
I
him
mean,
to some,
act.
huh?
That's not an LY act, basically.
Correct.
Right. I get what you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
but unfortunately, that's what they do. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't think majority of homicides are LY. You know what I'm saying? Bound, but they do it. A lot of crimes are, depending on where you're at. You know what I mean? Are
Just
severely,
because they do it does not make it
punished.
right.
Right. You know what I mean? But again, what race is the individual?
Black.
Right. You get what I'm saying? So racial disparities and disproportionalities in sentences and all that kind of stuff come into play. So I wouldn't doubt. I don't doubt that he probably was railroaded. I mean, it happens. I've seen many cases like it. I've suffered that myself. You know what I mean? So it's a rough. But I would have a lot more things that I would want to converse with him about. Just to see what the individual is. You know what I mean? And to get a better feel for where he's coming from.
Go ahead, Allison.
It's a conversation that, to be honest, we've not really dwelt on. But as far as we have talked about, how it all started and the fact that somebody, at the end of the day, somebody was murdered, somebody did it. And what as much as we've talked about it, what he said is that the loyalty was misplaced, completely misplaced, and it's not something that he would now, support. He feels now that if a friend came to him and said, "This is what I've done, help me," Major feels now that he would encourage the person to actually do the right thing and would pray for him And I know that Major prays for the man that was murdered. I know he does. I think he feels great remorse that he was ever involved in it at all, and he just wishes that his best friend had not phoned him, and he absolutely had nothing to do with it, because the whole thing is unpleasant. Somebody died, and who wants to be involved? Who wants to be
Right.
involved in that?
I've spoken to Major Anderson quite a few times, and I think that for anyone, no matter what prison or institution that they're in, to maintain a clear prison record for 18 years, especially going in young, it shows a lot about his character. But then also um, the way that he tries to live his life and motivate and spread kindness through his future ministry. He's already ministering, like, you know what I mean. He's doing the work. He's just not licensed. I don't think currently that would be something that he would participate in, but I can only speak for current. I don't know him 18 years ago, and like I said, I've only spoken to him quite a few times. And the ending result, if what he's saying is true, then a life without the possibility of parole sentence is unjust. And no matter if he knew, if he lied, if any of that is true, even if it is, that is still not that's not a first degree murder. That's not a person that was at a crime scene that killed someone. That maybe is an accessory after the fact. You know what I mean? And
Right.
and time could have been given for that if they felt that this person called you, you knew a murder occurred, you helped hide it. That's an accessory after the fact. But a life without the possibility of parole sentence is not just. And it's unfortunate. So how has he done? I seen that he listed off some is that 5 rulings and 32 petitions? Is that him like saying that he's done appeal, like an appeals process?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
So he didn't go into much in regards to that, and like Purpose is saying, I really wish we could talk more about that, like where he's at with his appeals. Uh, of course, he's incarcerated and he is stating that he's innocent. So anyone that is watching, if you have any legal connections, any attorneys in the state of Alabama that are looking to do some pro bono work, you can definitely reach out to Allison Roberts on Facebook. Is that your?
That's right, Alison Roberts on Facebook. Me in the sunset.
I'll put her info in the bottom so you guys can contact her in the comments. That way, better. We don't have all that confusion. So you can reach out to Allison, and she will be able to connect you with Major. Even if you just wanted to, reach out to him yourself, write him, so you can get a better feel of who he is as a human being. We'll have his writing information down there, and you guys can always, once you have his mailing address and information, you can always look him up. If you want to donate money to his books or funds or things like that, please feel free to do that. We definitely support the incarcerated community here at Prison from the Inside Out Inc. But we also encourage freedom of speech. So if you are not someone who is familiar with supporting people that are incarcerated, or you have questions, or you don't agree with what we're saying, feel free to say whatever you have to say, because I have time and we can talk about it.
I'd like to ask some real quick too, Portia, and you might want to go with tweaking or adjusting terms. And instead, he's coming across like, okay, I'm innocent. In the eyes of a lot of people, closer analysis, show something otherwise. You know what I'm saying? Like you even said, accessory after the fact, whatever. He should push more on some, I'm wrongfully convicted. You know what I'm saying? I was
Mm-hmm.
erroneously convicted and disproportionately sentenced. Perhaps that specification, you know what I'm saying, might, appeal to someone a lot, a little better.
Right. I can understand that. So it's like you're saying that technically he's not completely innocent because of the fact that his friend called him and he did not report him. Which, me just being me, I agree with what you're saying, but that's just generally not how it goes, whether you're gang affiliated or not. I've
Right.
never had a friend call me and tell me something illegal or not, and this is just facts. And then I was like, oh, I'm hanging up with you and calling the police. Now, I
Right.
could
Right.
be wrong, but this is my truth. I'm not going to sugarcoat it at all for this or not. That's generally not what happens.
Yeah, we don't we
And
don't we don't we don't get out like that. You
right,
know what I'm saying? But I'm just saying, through the lens of,
yeah, through
through the
outside
system
viewers.
and things like that, he might, want to, alter his approach a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people, free people out, we civilians, we look for safe streets. You know what I'm saying? And careful around certain people who, we want around us and our children and all that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? So
Absolutely.
it's very important that culpability lies, where it, must. So if in fact, this was an accessory after the fact, of course he's over, convicted, overcharged, over sentenced, the whole thing. Um, and he might want to look at that,
Right.
you know?
Do you know, Allison, uh, and this is like a just out there question, so it's okay for you to say no because it is kind of out there and it's like to do with statistics. The statistics of a person with in Alabama with the LWOP sentence to be commuted.
Very, very low rate. The parole board, there's actually on the 23rd, 24th, and 25th outside the parole board, there's a big demonstration in Alabama, really to demonstrate the fact that in the last, I think, 3 months, they've looked at 80 cases and I think they've released or stamped for parole four,
For four of them.
four out of 80. And it's just got to the point now, and the ones that have been given parole are the ones that I would question whether they should have been in there in the first place anyway. I mean, it's just they've got no hope. Basically, they've got no hope, particularly if you've been convicted of a violent crime. I don't think they've got a new man on the parole board that Kay Ivory, not Ivory, Kay Ivy. Nominated, I believe, Garrett or something his name is, and he's very anti letting anybody with a violent crime, convicted of a violent crime, given parole regardless of how long they served. So, even when I say violent crime, I mean even misdemeanors, like a punch up in a bar or something, that's they're
Violent.
unlikely to get out.
Mm. It's the South, and I mean I say that like that for a reason. They are behind in times, and if you are African
They,
American and find yourself in a prison in the South,
You're likely to
especially,
stay.
especially, especially Alabama, they're very draconian in their laws. Very outdated, very extreme. That's where the case Miller versus Alabama was born.
mm,
Case where 14-year-old dudes went out and did something, and again they aided and abettors, all of them. They've LWOPs, and that's when the federal courts banned the LWOPs and
right,
made the states start giving parole hearings. Even states that didn't even afford parole hearings didn't even have a parole system,
to
so they
youth
started
offenders.
forcing them to give them to youth offenders. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? But they're very, very harsh out there.
So I feel like this letter, because it kind of like, like going through this discussion with you guys, it I feel like there's so many unanswered questions. What I think
Yeah,
is is understood is that Major had found himself in a horrible predicament. He's living out this predicament, and he needs help.
I mean, what I'd like to say about that is being Major's biggest supporter, I nominate myself for that, and his loved one. I would like to say that in the time I've known him, he's always conducted himself with the utmost dignity. And I can only say, really, he's like a gentle child. He's quite a big man, but he's as soft and gentle as anybody. I am absolutely blown away. Particularly, I've said it before, but the dignity that he shows in his position every single day, I find humbling, because I don't think I would be able to be quite so dignified in the same circumstances. It'll make you or break you, and he's actually, he's good. Please God, he comes out. He will come out a much, much better person than he went in, even though he didn't deserve, the label of a murderer, because he isn't a murderer.
I can
It's very
agree with
unfortunate.
you.
Alabama's a very racist state.
Yes, it is.
Criminal justice system is
Yes, it
very
is.
foul. Right.
One of the most racist states of all
Right.
states. So I think because there are so many unanswered questions, and I feel like I said, what is understood is that he does need help. So everything that I said before stands in regards to the legal assistance, financial assistance, the contacts for Allison. But I think what is needed moving forward is for us to talk to Major himself, to let him kind of fill in the gaps, the things that we're
Yeah.
missing in regards to the appeals, where he's at with appeals. What exactly was said on that phone call when the best friend initially called, because that was like a large gap for me personally. And then also, why was it not proven in court that he was at work? And if all of these are things that were, overlooked due to his attorney, then that in itself is that's an appeal for ineffective counsel.
Yes.
So maybe you can set that up for us, Allison, and I can give you the phone number. I don't know what Alabama uses. Do they use Connect Network, Global Telling? What kind of phone service?
Secure. What is it?
Oh,
Some secure.
Securus. They use Securus. They don't like me. I striked against them. I hosted a strike. Look, I hosted a strike. But I guarantee you they'll still take my money, no problem. So so I'll set up an account or whatever, and we can set up or even you, if he calls you and you have, I don't know how you be able to do it if you're going to join the call also. But if he calls you, we can have him come over by voice, and
Yes.
we'll do it. We can do another interview that way.
Yeah, I mean, he gets 15 minutes on the phone, so we'll have to do a little bit of prep before and see what questions people want answered. But we've got, I think, as you say, there's more questions than answers.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We need him to be able to speak up for himself as well.
Yes, and you know what? He knows this has been coming for a long time. I don't even think I said that. It's been over a year that I've been communicating back and forth with him, and trying to get his story out. But God, everything happens on God's timing. That's what I will say. So it's finally time, and we are going to keep on pushing until we get the full story out there, so that Major can get the assistance that he needs. You guys want to say anything in closing?
I've really. Oh, you go. You go.
So it's very important, when we come on here from Prison from the Inside Out, this is technically called our bio program, but when I initially started this organization, I started it as a way for men and women who are incarcerated to be able to tell their stories, to voice um, the injustices that happen, whether they're guilty, innocent, wrongfully convicted, or not. It's not my place to judge, and technically, it's not anybody's place to judge. We are humans. We make mistakes, and people can be redeemed. People can grow. People learn from their mistakes. That is what humans do, and it's human nature. Um, so, in that, I appreciate Major and anyone else who participated in what's now called the bio program, because it takes bravery to be transparent and to come out and share uh, their story with the world, not knowing if the backlash is going to be harsh or received well. And they do that, and they carry on with their days and their lives when they're already in tough situations. Living in a cage is not easy. And so I want to thank Major first. And then, of course, I want to thank Allison and Purpose for joining and helping to get Major's story out. And we will update you all as soon as we get word from when we will schedule the interview with Major Duval Anderson. So thank you all for watching, and we will see you next time.